Welcome to Reps to GOG. I'm TectonicImprov. Fuck my life. It's time for a review. Unreal Tournament is the debut installment to the incredibly influential multiplayer arena first-person shooter. Most people would associate Unreal Tournament with the PC, but there was actually not only a PlayStation 2 port ready just in time for launch, but also a Sega Dreamcast port a year prior. Now, I'm sure when anyone brings up Unreal Tournament for the PlayStation 2, something I'm told happens often, a pretty big question comes to mind. Why the fuck would you play something like Unreal Tournament on console? Well, believe it or not, there is at least one reason to play Unreal Tournament on console, but that's something we'll get into in a little while. Before I get into the review proper, I want to regale the epic of me trying to get this game running on PCSX2. So on the compatibility website, it explains that Unreal Tournament should run 100% fine so long as you have a legacy compiler called SuperVU enabled, which is as easy as going into the emulation settings on the emulator. However, even with this setting enabled, I still found the game hanging before I was even able to enter a match. It wasn't until a little while later did I realize I needed to do a complete shutdown and restart the disk, so to speak. Once I did this, I finally got into a match. I fucking smoked Brock in some deathmatch and was about to go to the next match, only for the game to hang. At this point, I scoured the internet, searching for the issue to my problem. I was getting pretty frustrated at this point too, but I managed to figure out what was wrong, thanks to this thread on GitHub. Turns out, in addition to using the SuperVU compiler, I also had to dive into the INI files of the emulator and change this setting to equal 1. And with that, everything worked as intended. Well, sometimes the loading screens are cut off, but that's it. It's kind of a shame though, because the art for these is really great. Oh well. Once everything was up and running, I noticed that the music wasn't fucked up this time either. Full disclosure, I've never played this game before, so I wasn't aware the music completely stopping after one play wasn't intentional. In hindsight, that should have been a dead giveaway, something was wrong, but I'm dumb. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start with the review proper. I'm sure you're all waiting with bated breath. So Unreal Tournament, while known mostly for its multiplayer, does have a single-player mode. A single-player mode that's nothing but bot matches, but a single-player mode nonetheless. Out of the 4 difficulty types, I decided to go with Master. Not because I think I'm amazing at these games or anything, but because the AI in this game is interesting, which is something I'll get into later. For now though, the single player allows you to play through 4 different game modes, some more self-explanatory than others. There's the aforementioned classic, Deathmatch. Just get a certain number of frags and then you win. If you're not in the loop, this is a frag. And so is this. And this. And that. There's Domination, a mode where you and a few others are pitted against another team. Whoever can maintain control over specific points on a map for a certain amount of time wins. After that is Capture the Flag. Once again, 2 teams are tasked with taking the other's flag from their home base back to their own base. Whichever team completes this objective 3 times wins. Finally, there's Assault. This is an attack and defend mode where one team has to protect their base from being swarmed/destroyed by the enemy for an arbitrary amount of time. Win or lose, the teams swap places and do it again with the roles reversed. Out of those 4 game modes, I'd have to say the best is Deathmatch. The frantic gameplay on Unreal Tournament lends itself well to this mode the most, obviously since it's the original multiplayer shooter game mode. Domination I'd say is the second best, probably because it feels the most like Deathmatch out of the remaining modes, but the added objective of maintaining control points shakes it up enough to make it fun to play. However, it can be kind of hard to internalize where on the map the specific points are. They give the points names, but they're sometimes in pretty conspicuous places, like this nook over here. I'm mostly willing to chalk this up to me just being unfamiliar with the maps, but maybe it has something to do with the field of view? I don't know, maybe it's because I'm playing a shooter with a controller, but I felt like I had tunnel vision a lot of the time. Finally, the first impression for this mode wasn't the best. Not a big fan of this map, but once the areas began opening up a little more, I was enjoying it. Capture the Flag is where this starts to get a little rocky. I think the game mode itself is merely okay, but playing it single player with bots is not exactly my idea of a good time. The AI wasn't a very big help in this mode, so instead of a 3v3 capture the flag match, it felt more like a 1v3 match, comprised mostly of running away. Oh, and there was this really weird performance drop I experienced on one of the CTF maps, where the entire game just completely slowed to a crawl when in a certain area. I'm not sure if this is an issue with the emulator or the port itself, but considering how much hassle it took to even get this game to play in the first place, I'm willing to put the blame on the emulator. Although if anyone wants to weigh in on this in the comments, be my guest. And then there's Assault. This mode I did not like at all. Your objective is explained to you at the beginning of the match, but you're not told how to do it. I spent a lot of my time on the offensive team just trying to figure out what to do when I'm in the enemy base. By pure luck, I figured out how to win with seconds on the clock. When on defense, it's just kind of boring, sitting around and waiting for the AI to come into your crosshair and smoke them. Needless to say, this mode didn't make a very good first impression on me. Okay, no more ignoring the elephant in the room. Yes, I've been using a controller to play this game. There is a way to set up keyboard and mouse support on the emulator, but trying to get that working ended up being a bigger hassle than I expected, so I dropped it. Besides, it wouldn't be the authentic PlayStation 2 experience if I played with a keyboard and mouse, would it? I think Epic Games realized how awkward it would be to play a game like Unreal Tournament with a controller, so they added a lot of customization with the controls. I'm not kidding either, look at this. There's almost 10 different controller layouts you can use, alongside aiming sensitivity, inverted y-axis, and so on. With so many different controller layouts, they probably should have just let players map the buttons wherever they pleased, instead of a bunch of presets, but I'm not too upset about this. There's bound to be one controller layout that suits your needs. I'm personally a fan of the D layout myself, I just wish aiming with a stick didn't feel so damn stiff. That said, it's not a deal breaker because, like I said earlier, Epic knew playing Unreal Tournament with a controller wasn't ideal, so they gave you a ridiculous amount of auto-aim. At first, I wasn't really sure how bad it was, but once I started noticing the constant direct hits I was getting with the rocket launcher, it became pretty obvious. I'm not that good at aiming, especially without a mouse. The weapons available in this game are pretty good. I personally wasn't exactly blown away by any of them, but they sound punchy, look pretty unique, and most are useful for certain situations. Because of the aforementioned insane auto-aim, I found myself sticking to the rocket launcher and the flat cannon, this game's shotgun. Each of the weapons have an alt-fire as well. The flat cannons in particular is pretty great, shooting a grenade-like projectile that explodes on contact. The sniper rifle could be pretty devastating at times, but it felt pretty unruly most of the time due to the stick aiming. I managed to actually get a ridiculous amount of kills one round with the Ripper, but otherwise didn't use it much. The pulse gun had a pretty cool, albeit fairly weak alt-fire. The Redeemer I only managed to get once, and I completely whiffed the shot. Ouch. The rest of the guns I'm down the middle on, I suppose. The laser rifle feels especially weak, and I hate to sound like a broken record here, but aiming with a controller, man, jeez. Remember earlier when I mentioned the AI? Yeah, I didn't forget. While playing through this game single player, I felt like I had a pretty good grip on the characteristics of the AI. In fact, in an earlier draft of the script, I had pretty much just said it was completely terrible and left it at that. Then I went to Ice Station Zero, and I got absolutely trounced. It was like a light had been turned on, and they were all of a sudden god gamers, getting every single meat shot with the flat cannon, direct hits with the rocket launcher. I must have been killed with practically every single weapon. It was at this point where I started to feel like the controller was really hindering my play. Like I said, I'm not trying to claim I'm incredible at these games, but using a controller is definitely a handicap. Alright, so let's get into it. Why exactly would you want to play this version of Unreal Tournament over the PC version? Well, it's not as cut and dry as you may think. For one, the character models in this version of the game are of a higher fidelity. but that's a minor difference in the grand scheme of things. Then there are a handful of console-exclusive maps, but those are a bit of a double-edged sword, since a lot of the maps were cut from the game in exchange for these exclusive ones. No, the real reason to play this game is for the multiplayer, of course. Because while yes, the PC version does have online multiplayer, playing with friends locally is obviously a harder endeavor. There's always LAN parties, but even the most hardcore of PC gamers can admit it's much easier to just pop in UT in the PS2 and grab two controllers. So I'd say the big reason to play this version over the PC one would be if you want to know what the exclusive maps are like, or if you want to play split-screen multiplayer with a friend. Of course, I don't know if anyone nowadays is clamoring to play the original Unreal Tournament locally, but I'm sure this game served its purpose at the time. The competition/market for console first-person shooters of this caliber was fairly small, what with the Xbox and GameCube still a year out. But with the current competition, Unreal Tournament for the PS2 wouldn't be challenged until one day later when Quake 3 Arena was released on the Dreamcast. The PlayStation 2 wouldn't get its own version of Quake 3 for a few months, so we'll have to wait and see if it's up to snuff. Until then, there's another console first-person shooter that's sure to impress, coming sooner than you might think. Despite some lukewarm words, especially near the end there, this is probably one of the better launch titles for the PS2. Looks pretty good for its time, performance-wise it runs smoothly outside of some really busy screens, and probably provided a lot of fun at sleepovers in its heyday. That said, Unreal Tournament for the PlayStation 2 comes off as a bit of a novelty. I recommend fans of the series check it out if they're curious, otherwise, just stick to the original PC port.